Because I forgot else we should start talking. But it's always best to start talking anyways.
But yeah, the people who like think mushrooms could be a party drug is the worst thing you can do. Yeah. The worst thing you can do, because like the guy who me and him, like my roommate, he taught me a lot about it because he has a lot more experience. He's older than me, and he told me, I was like, yeah, when I was, there's a time where he was high on mushrooms, and he was like, and he got like almost like paranoid to a sense. And he was like, he heard like an old folktale where like you drink vodka with it and it takes you out of the high, but that's not really true. It just like all it does is like put you in a different state, I guess. But like to me, the whole drinking milk, milk, it could like take you out of it. There's just shit like that where people. There's just a lot of theories. Nothing's ever really proven or worked.
I know. So I was taking this friend to like meet different shamans. We had met this one shaman in Mexico from Sonora. And he just kept telling me he had some like bomb ass mushrooms and shit. And he was like, yeah, we're gonna go do ayahuasca with him. And then my friend was getting those mushrooms, and he told us to take it with honey. He was like,
just to help it go down, or what?
Yeah, he said instead of like mixing it with like different stuff or drinking it with orange juice, he said, he said just mix it with a little bit of honey and just like lick a spoon and shit and just eat it that way.
It's actually a pretty smart deal. I know like the orange juice thing. I've heard of lemon juice. Some with citrus. Citrus like brings it out or helps the potency or some shit.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done it yet, but
we're all fucking chemists around here, man.
Yeah, it's all like just street shit you hear. It's like nobody's like really sat down and like I can't find studies that like say the right thing or not. So who knows what the fuck works?
What's I guess since you said you take it and you do kind of sometimes reflect on things, is there like probably like the best reflection you've had and like the worst experience you've had?
So there's two of them. My best experience I probably had was probably the first time I did it, and probably one of the most recent times I did it. First time I did it was in San Diego. I was with a bunch of other comics. We were down there for a show. We're just in an Airbnb. And that's where like the real self-reflection really kicked in, because I never looked at myself in this way. Never in my life have I really talked about myself in this way, expressed myself like this to other people. So it made me think like we're talking about comedy, what we really wanted to do in comedy, stuff like that. And it made me think like, yo, like, because I was working a regular job then. And I was like, dude, like I hate that job. And I never talked about that job like that to people. I was like, dude, I hate this job. Like I can't stand it, this and that. And then it started guiding me in the way to like leave that job and like kind of really pursue comedy in like a full-time sense or whatever. And then so that's really what started the whole thing for me. I was like, dude, like it made me just really focus on what I want to do instead of like this is what you have to do, like this old mentality of like you get a job, retire, and die stuff. That's where like I kept thinking, I was like, I really don't want to do that because I don't love this job. I don't love doing anything like that. I love doing stand-up. I love just comedy. I love podcasting. I love trying to make shit with my friends. I love sketches. And I was like, that's all I want to do. Versus like this job where I have to go away from that every week. Cause like I'm tired of going away from stand up. I want to go more towards it. So that's really what settled in with me. Worst experience was a Fresno versus Bakersfield show.
Yeah, last night.
No. Fresno versus Bakersfield show, Bad Neighbor show. It was our second show we did at the Well in June.
All right.
Yeah, I took mushrooms before. And I had the worst anxiety attack I ever had.
Oh shit!
And I had to go on stage, and I ate shit for 10 minutes, and I got off stage. And I was like, oh fuck, never again. I had anxiety for like fuck. I was high for 2 days, and anxiety throughout the whole time. Worst experience I've ever had.
So no, like, you're not gonna do mushrooms before you go up again.
No, I haven't done mushrooms on stage in a minute. Like if I was gonna microdose like around like, because I was like every couple months I'll just like microdose for like a week or whatever. I'll microdose, but that's a different feeling instead of like me being a full blown like on a couple grams of mushrooms on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I know microdosing is like becoming more. Well, I don't even know if that's a thing too, man. You hear shit on the internet and they blow it up as like something big, where you're like, nah.
Yeah, some people think it's a big deal, or like a big thing, but not a lot of people do it. Not a lot of people do it the right way. A lot of people was like, why microdose? And I was like, but then at night they're getting fucked up on it. I was like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, you're just supposed to microdose a little bit and that's it.
They're more like recovering from a hangover by like taking another shot.
Exactly. Exactly. Instead of like, you just ride that wave.
When you were talking earlier about your reflection, right? Your best experience, and what you learned from it. I think that's something that I've noticed more and more with like going back to work, like this everybody a year of like no real human contact, and then going back to work and hearing everybody and like what they've been up to, and then kind of like people like just dropping, like just like what the fuck, and people are just dropping to start businesses, get jobs other places. Like I think it's been a weird experience for myself, because I think for me, what's the best way to put it? As if we were to call it like a Ponzi scheme, right? This whole it's called the American Dream, a Ponzi scheme. And the baby boomers were at the top of the fucking pyramid scheme. They fucking believed it, moved forward, and it was happening. And so why not believe it, right?
Right.
And then other people started jumping in to try to get their cut of the pie, and then it wasn't sustainable, and, you know. And then now we're like at the fucking bottom where it's about to like fall apart, and we're looking up at like, but I bought all the packages, and I you know, I did all the things I was supposed to do.
I was a part of it.
And like, you know, in like I guess in a sales way, they would tell you, well, you're just not a good salesman, you know, whatever. You're just not good at what you were trying to do. But I think a lot of people got caught in that situation where they kind of feel like they were kind of just putting it on themselves and just continuing with the job that they didn't like.
Yeah.
You whether it be like again, just trying to continue the grind of the how to do it, and then I think that just like fell apart, and a lot of people started like, you know what, I'll give you an example of like what I think people are saying now. A while back, when I was like in 2015 or so, my dad had passed away, and I had a friend who had gotten like an apartment in Los Angeles, in Santa Monica, and he's like, hey man, I got this apartment, I got an extra room, you know, you can come by, you can just stay there if you like, you know, it's cool with me if you want to say you want to stay out here. And so I was living in Banning, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and because my dad had passed away, and after I was taking care of him, and so like, do I stay here in this town or do I go back to school? And he's like inviting me to go to LA, so I was like, what should I do? And so I just had to like reflect a little bit, and so I was reflecting, and I was like, you know what, I could be trying to get my shit together in this little fucking town, or I can be trying to get my shit together by the beach.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what the fuck it is.
So I was like, I'm going to go figure out what the fuck I need to do at the beach.
Yep.
So every day I just ride the skateboard to the beach, and I just sit there and fucking doodle, fucking chill. You know, I was single at the time, so I was like going on dates. I was like trying to meet people, and it was a trip, bro. Like just living like that. But and I think a lot of people are trying to do that now. They're like, just like, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with that.
Because to me, the whole thing, like for like your experience for such, a similar experience. I lived in I'm not from Bakersfield. I lived in East Kern County in the desert. I lived out there for my whole life. Everybody in my family lives out there. First person to really leave for my like generation was my brother. He left. He went to the Bay. I was still there. I was by myself. My cousin left, went to some other part. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what do I want to do? I was driving to Bakersfield before the pandemic, an hour almost every day off I had just to come do stand up, because I started in 2018, and then I was just driving every day off I had. That was an open mic. I was here in Bakersfield, going up, going back home. So it was like 2.5 hours every day, and then made me realize, like, dude, I kind of like I'm one of those weirdos that I love Bakersfield. I love it because it's been nothing but good to me. Like to me it's a fun town, especially when you're young and like, you know, you're kind of like artsy. It's very supportive of that versus where I'm from. If you're young, you either do what I was doing. You work in a gold mine or you work at a fucking borax mine. There's no in between. You go to that or you go to college.
What city was it again?
California City.
California City. Okay.
Yeah, I used to live out there. It's a super like just blue collar town. Like you get a job working at the base, you get a job working at the gold mine, the borax mine, or you work for like Lockheed or one of those like aerospace places, and that's just all people do in that town.
It's crazy how your environment does like
suppresses so much and blocks like your view of like what's out there.
Yes, just because you see a consistency in the people around you.
Right.
I had that similar experience when I was a kid, and I was just talking to a friend about it, that like seeing everybody around me and like I didn't understand it as like poverty. I just understand it as like a system of like, you know, you join a gang, you deal with that shit, and the outcomes are your jail and death.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really think more than that. And it wasn't even like I saw it as like the hood and scary. And it was just kind of like, all right, this is just how things are.
Right.
And so didn't really think much of it. And then I think my dad just had enough of my shit and he kicked me out. I went to go live with my mom, and I was such a like a problem that even my mom didn't want to live with me. She was just like, here's a house. She was like, here's a house. I'm gonna go live over here, and then you get yourself across the border, and because it was in Mexico, you cross by yourself. I'll leave you money so you can get the taxi and the bus every morning, get to school, and here's some money for food.
Right.
Like just kind of figure it out.
Right.
And so, oh fuck, I spaced out. Wow, I was talking about that.
Your environment.
Yeah, the environment. Oh, so once I started doing that, I started going to schools, and I remember I was telling this person the same thing. Like I remember I got there, and I noticed like the gangs. Like right away, I was like, okay, these are the group of like the bad kids, and this is what's going on. And these fools hang out with these fools, and I was kind of observing. And then as I learned about the gangs there, I was just like, man, they're really like disorganized. Because I befriended one guy, and he was telling me about the gang, and I was just like, man, they're like not organized very well.
Right.
Like someone could organize these people. Maybe it should be me. And so, once I got that's again in my head, I started also noticing like there was all these people like being nice and like, hey man, like, are you coming out to the game?
Right.
It's like, what? It's like, yeah, come out to the game. We're all gonna go. And I was like, who are we fighting? They're like, what? Like, what? I was like, are we fighting the other school or what? And they're like, no, we're just all gonna watch the game, man. You want to come watch the game? And I was like, yeah, I'll come watch the game,
Yeah.
And so, like, I just started noticing like things were way different. And then that's when I was like, I heard kids talking about going to school and trying to get good grades. And
yeah.
And I was always like, I took pride in not giving a fuck about school, because I remember not thinking like, what's the point? Like, I'm just gonna end up in jail or in this shitty ass situation anyways. Why am I gonna like spend my time doing these things that I'm never gonna use? Because I literally would not use them in any way. And so I was like, fuck that shit. And so I would like when I was a kid, they wanted to put me in like the gate program and shit.
Yeah.
And then like I ran into like some hurdles for where I couldn't get in. And instead of just going like, nah, fuck that, like I want to do this, I was just like, okay, whatever. Didn't care about it. I would like take tests, and I would score like high, but I wouldn't I wouldn't ever do homework. I would never do the class assignments. I would just
give a fuck.
I just did not give a fuck. But I was smart enough to pick up all that shit just by like just sitting there and like poking fuckers and like telling fart jokes and shit. And so I remember just to like veer off a little bit. I remember this one time I was in class, and I got put in timeout. This teacher wanted to like shame me, bro, because it's like, I'm in high school, you're gonna put me in timeout. What the fuck? And so they go, and she goes, go get in the corner. And I was just like, whatever, fucking. I think I just didn't want to get in trouble that day or some shit. So I was like, fuck it. So I go to the corner. I have my desk in the corner, and I'm chilling. And she goes, that's it, get out. And I was like, I literally didn't do shit. I'm in the fucking corner. I'm staring at the fucking corner. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And then when I got to the office, they explained to me, it was just like, people were paying so much attention to me that even as I wasn't even knowing that people were paying attention to me, I was facing the corner, and just my being bored in the corner, and like my gestures of like looking around and just being bored.
Yeah.
People were not paying attention to her. And so she just fucking tired of that shit. And I was like, man, this fucking lady's crazy. Anyways, that made me think about that. But yeah, like I never had those thoughts of like, oh, I'm gonna do these things, until I saw other people doing different things, and people having different jobs, and people talking about like making a living. Yeah. And it was just like, I was like, oh, this shit is crazy.
No, like I'm thinking about like what it was for me was back before I first moved out here, and I made the decision. I was like, fuck, I'm just find an apartment and move. I'll travel to work, because I still had a job out there. I still worked at the gold mine. I was like, I'm gonna just travel an hour 10 minutes every day one way, and then back. So it was like 2.5 hours every day again, going back and forth just to go to work. And I was like, at least I'm living in Bakersfield. That was my excuse, is at least I live here. And I met a girl who worked 2 jobs. She worked at like a movie theater and Starbucks. And she was like, yeah, I just pay my rent like that, and I can do whatever I want. I was like, what the fuck? She was like, yeah, I just work here and go to Starbucks in the morning. That's my time, And it made me think. I was like, dude, like, can you really, like, you just have to grind, like you just have to grind like for that, and you get to do whatever you want. And it made me like really sit back and think. And that's when like I went on the trip, and I realized like, yo, this is like, I really just want to do comedy like full time. And then that's when it clicked. I was like, okay, like I quit this job. Like, dude, I was making pretty decent money for a dude with no real fucking college education, shit like that. I was drilling for them, doing blast hole drilling and shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, I was making pretty decent money for my age. And then I was like, fuck it, I could just go away, save up some money, and just dip out. So that's what I did. I just quit. Fucking told him, like, hey, like I'm done. I'm just gonna do stand up. So I did stand up. I was like, now I just work part time.
You actually said that to them though? I'm gonna do stand up.
Yeah.
Did
Funny.
they start laughing.
Funny.
They're like, this motherfucker.
Well, all of them knew I did
Okay.
comedy. All of them knew I did comedy already.
How often do you think you hear that as like a supervisor? I'm gonna fucking take off. I'm gonna be somebody.
Rarely. I guarantee rarely, because nobody ever takes that chance. Of
Most
like,
people get fired.
Most people get fired.
Yeah, fuck you, man.
Yeah, or
I
they
don't need this
just
shit.
they just stop showing up. But like, rarely do supervisors hear, I was like, I'm quitting because of this, because I'm gonna go actually do whatever the fuck I want. Rarely.
I think how I talked about like going out to Peru and doing all that, doing ayahuasca and traveling and doing all that stuff. Like even before that, I was always trying to. I was aware of my circumstances, but as I was getting out of those circumstances, and I started seeing how people were making money, I was like, how do white people make money? Like, how does this work? And my stepdad was white, and so like I would talk to him and shit about money, and he would tell me about like businesses, and so as I started figuring that out, I was like, man, there's more shit to like stuff, and there's more shortcuts and things that you can do,
right?
And so I started working on those things. Oh man, I fucking don't know why I'm starting off on that shit again. I'm all off today, bro.
Yeah, no, for like that whole like quitting your job thing just to do whatever the fuck you want is like so rare. Like to those guys, it's so unheard of.
That's what I was gonna say. The what it is I started bettering myself.
Yeah,
I started having fucking pride for myself.
Yeah, big time.
And so when I started having pride for myself, I realized that I was losing friends left and right, bro. Friends, family, fucking coworkers and shit. Like once I was like, this is gonna be the standard of what I expect as respect for myself, but I'm also gonna hold myself to other people the same way.
Right.
And so once I had that, when I was like, this is what I consider a relationship, this is what I consider a friend, this is what I consider a family, this is what I consider an employee, this is what once I started like making those lines, and then when people would cross them, I'd be like, we're done here. I'm not gonna sit here and become your enemy. I'm not gonna sit here and fight you. All I'm gonna walk away. And then I'm not gonna deal with you anymore.
Right.
That's how I'm gonna solve my problems from now on. I'm just not gonna deal with you. And so when I started doing that, my bosses would always fucking like trip out when I was quitting, man. Every job I ever had, when I was like, hey man, I'm sorry, man, it was a pleasure working for you. Unfortunately, this isn't gonna work out for us anymore. So I'm just gonna have the respect to give you the 2 week notice. And I remember one guy, I quit on the spot. But I came in that morning and I trained the guy how to do my job in like fucking 4 hours, bro. I was like, here, man, this is the system I created. This is how I've been working the mail. Cause the guy he worked for like a medical office. Yeah. And I went in there to help out. Now they had a system already, but the system was like, it needed to be greased, So I greased it up and I went, and then I just told the guy, this is how I do it. This is what I'm expecting. He's like, well, I like doing it. I was like, yeah, well, that way wasn't fucking working, bro. Yeah. So just do it the way I'm telling you. It's not my problem after I leave it. So yeah. So I was just like, boom, boom, boom. And then everything was like done for the day. And then I just busted ass. And then when he got there, he was like, yeah, I just came back from my lunch from my, my millionaire friends and shit. It was a small business guy. He was a cool guy himself, but whatever. We had a difference of things. But his dad was the accountant, and he was supposed to I was a 1099 worker, and what he ended up doing was they ended up offering me a job. But I had told him when I got hired, because he told me I was overqualified, and I was like, I'm only gonna work for you for about a year and a half while I'm getting my shit together out here in LA, and then I'm gonna mob out. Once I figure out what I'm gonna do, I'm mobbing out. And I was like, but in that time, I'm gonna be here every day on time. I was like, I don't drink, and if I am gonna fucking drink, I guess I'm gonna not do it when I'm gonna come work for you. Right. I just told him I'm just gonna be consistent for you. I'm gonna bust ass and just give me a year of employment and I'm out. And so I think I was a month in. He's like, I want to offer you a job and work for us and we'll pay you this much. And I was just like, no. And then because I already know I'm leaving, and I don't want to get stuck again somewhere. I'm not even gonna bother with it. So eventually they convinced me well, you're not going to stay, but we want to pay you as an employee so you can get insurance and all this shit, right? So that's the stuff I was thinking about. So I was like, all right, fuck it. So they pay me, but what he ends up telling me is it's half my check. And I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, yeah. I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, well, we did a back pay of what you had to pay the government. because it wasn't like I started as an employee for this check. They like
Yeah.
went back checks, and I was like, no. I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna need my money.
Yeah.
And then he was like, but he's all the accountants, you know. He's like, you know, he does all this stuff, and he's not feeling well. He barely did this for me, and I was like, don't give me this hustle conversation, man.
Yeah.
You know, you own this business, and you own that accountant.
Yeah.
That motherfucker will jump as high as you tell him to fucking jump.
You know,
So call his ass, tell him to fucking back pay, or cut me a check and figure out the numbers later for yourself.
Yeah.
But you're gonna give me my fucking money. And so we're going back and forth, and then eventually he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to talk to your son about this, because like I'm like, I don't feel comfortable that you feel comfortable with me going home with half my fucking check. And so I think the next day I did all that shit right. I tried to talk myself out of it,
Yeah.
and then I was like, nah, man, like if the motherfucker will talk to me like that, like what situation am I gonna get in myself later? Not really, like not this situation, but something I say like something different, you know, where I do need them to have some fucking reason of why they should have some respect for me. And if I don't do this now, like I'm just gonna continue to like hate myself, or you better yet be in a situation where I go, well, I fucking deserved it because I knew better, you know. And so I told the guy, I was like, no, I'm quitting. He's like, it's about the money, right? Because I guess they had talked about it. Yeah,
of course they talked
but
about
they
it.
let me work a
Yeah.
whole 4 hours before they ever like say, hey, bro, like we discussed it yesterday,
Yeah.
and we determined that, you know, here's the money or whatever, right? Didn't do that shit. They just saw me grinding out in the morning, like there he goes, you know, fucking knows his place and shit. And so then when he shows up, I tell him like, hey man, I'm taking off. He's like, put the money. I was like, yeah. He's like, let's come to my office and we'll talk about it. So I go to his office, and then he's like, yeah, man, like you know, I think you're making a mistake. And it's just like, I was like, you know, man, it's about pride, man. It's about having some sort of respect for myself. And like you said, I'm overqualified, so I can just go down this hall and get another job.
But you know damn well they probably offered you to do they probably offered you a spot, like a actual payroll spot, because of some sort of taxes. They saw they were going to get a break. The accountant definitely knew what was up. The owner of the accountant definitely talked about this before, because there's no way you just make the executive decision like, hey, let's fucking just offer this guy. No, there's definitely back pay of some shit. That's why he was like, no, we just took it out of your check. It's like, so we're going to lose. We're actually going to get the tax benefit of having another employee.
Something, right?
So it's always something. It's always something, because they never hire someone to be a good person. They always hire someone to benefit themselves. And that's what I learned, like, along the lines of, like, working and shit like that. Because I'm only 24, and I've been working since I was 18. I know. I was like, you're not just hiring someone just to hire someone. Like, you're hiring someone because it's going to benefit you in a way.
One way or another.
Yeah. There's no way you're just doing this out of the kindness of your heart.
And then what added to it was, like, it's one thing, like, you get maybe, like, in a relationship, you get in an argument, but then you're able to talk it out, and you're kind of like, whatever, you know? Because you end up like, oh, maybe I was exaggerating in the moment or something, or maybe you know, whatever the situation, you realize that you should like back down a little bit on whatever you're wrong about it. Man, this guy was just like digging the hole deeper, bro. Yeah, just fucking deeper every fucking time. And so he's like, I think you're making a mistake, man. I think you're making a mistake. You know, how about Randy? How much was it? What, like, I think it was like $700.
Yeah,
I'll let you borrow $700.
Motherfucker, you owe me $7. Borrow.
He's like I don't see what the big deal is. I was like, hey man, if I have a job, it's because I count my money, right? I'm thinking ahead of time what I'm gonna make with the hours that I have. So you don't know what bills I had, and you're just gonna go ahead and be content with making me go home with half my check without giving me no fair warning of it. You didn't tell me anything about this stuff. You didn't tell me what check it was. I was going to start being employed. You didn't tell me what my check was going to look like. You didn't tell me I was going to have back pay to fucking the government. So, like, you know, I don't see how you feel comfortable with it. And he's just like, well, I was like, nah, man, like, I just don't. And then it doesn't help that you just told me that you would let me borrow the money. Like, it's not a big deal. You have so much money, bro, that you just feel like you can let me borrow $700. When I just told you that I'm going home with half my check, and how it like dude, you're just oblivious to my situation,
right? And
I'm better off just going, bro. And so he just looked at me and he's like, you know, Randy, you make more money than I do.
For some reason, why do they like to turn to shit like that?
I was like, bro, This is literally the conversation I had this with another friend. I told him, I was like, I would walk to work, and I purposely, again, this was all again with the thought that I'm not gonna stay here, right? I'm just gonna work. So I was like, okay, it's gonna be I can walk to work.
Yeah.
I can go home for a break or whatever. And so, instead of taking the bus to get there, just like maybe 10 minutes faster, I would just walk an extra time to, like, one, get some exercise, and then also, if I saved the money that instead of taking the bus, I could buy myself 2 more tacos during my lunch.
That's right.
So I was always taking that walk with like pride that it was healthy, even though I'm like getting all this fucking smog and shit.
Yeah.
But this guy, I'm taking the bus, or I'm avoiding the bus, and this guy, I remember he had this car. I looked it up, and it was like $100,000. It was an electric car with like a fucking solar thing on the top. Had these like fucking exotic symbols in the front with this snake and something. I don't know what the fuck. And then he was like talking about how I made as much as him, that I made more than him. And I was like, well, then you got to tell me about money, bro, because whatever you're doing with fucking, I don't know what the fuck you think you're making.
Yeah.
Like I'm obviously stupid with money here, so like cut me a slack, and you know what, keep the fucking 700. Teach me how to fucking work with the fucking 700 you left me. You know,
for real.
Like what the fuck is going on? But yeah, I know I started noticing that. Like I would leave jobs, and then I wouldn't say nobody was mad at me. Everybody was just kind of like, this motherfucker. Like I knew eventually he'd like take off.
Yeah.
Like he ain't gonna put up with my shit.
Yeah. For me, like that's the complete opposite. Is people thought, like when I told them I was like, hey, I'm quitting. They were like surprised, because they thought I was gonna like stay there and like retire and shit like that and be there with them. Because like I was becoming successful in like what I was doing. You know, I was really honing in on what I like. You know, the job and shit like that. And I was starting to train other people. I was there for, I think, for 4 or 5 years. And because I started when I was like 19 and I left this year. So it was crazy to me that they really looked at me and was like, oh, you were going to be a lifetime employee here. And that was it. I was like, and that's like, I caught them off guard. My last day working there, I got a write-up for not showing up to work on the day I told them I was going to quit.
Damn.
The day I was going to quit, I got a write-up for them. I was like, fuck it. I was like, I could care less.
I think another one thing that makes that situation hard, where like you're not necessarily quitting a job like that, but you're working there because you do kind of enjoy the job, or it's not a bad job, but there's just some people there that if you have a personality of, like my personality is like, I don't give a fuck, right? Again, I'm not gonna go to work and try to make people's life miserable. Like I don't give a fuck like that. It's more just like, I'm here to do my job. You paid me. Like this is I consider this a contract.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grind for you, and I expect you to respect me, and that's it. That means giving me a raise when I get married, a raise.
Right.
You know, giving me the tools to do my job.
Right.
Like whatever that situation is, you know, showing me some fucking respect. And then when you talk to people like that, sometimes like, yeah, you definitely like ruffle feathers with certain people who are like,
people's egos get in the way more than anything, especially when someone's a manager, supervisor. Their ego gets in the way, like
because
right
that
now.
job meant everything. They got caught in the gears, you know. And they were like, this means everything. And then when they get there, and then you're like, it's actually, this ain't even fucking real, bro. You know.
Yeah, it's like, congrats,
we're on a simulation, and you decide to be the grumpy fucking supervisor.
Yeah, congrats. Nobody gives a fuck about you, dog. Cool. Outside these
nobody
doors,
picks
no one
you
cares.
to play the game, bro.
Yeah. So it's like because that supervisor gave me a write up, and I fucking didn't even. I looked at it. I was like, "What is this? My going away gift? What the like funny?" And then like I just handed it back to him. I was like, "No, I need you to sign that so we can keep it in your file for when you come back." And I was like, "You got me fucked up." And I wrote Joe Dirt on it and handed it back to him. And I was like, "I'm out of here." Left. Went to HR, grabbed my last check. And here's why I snuck in a good way. I was like, I told HR, I was like, you're the only people who are fair here. Like, I was like being like super, I was like upfront and honest with them. I was like, I only like you guys. I was like, I only like you guys from HR because like you guys are the ones who aren't dicks to anybody. Mm-hmm. You guys play by the rules, honestly, and you guys make everybody feel equal. I was like, because that fucking supervisor back there, like, I don't give a fuck about that dude. That dude fucking made my life harder.
She's all hitting the button under the desk.
I know. Fuck that fool. Like,
she's like, Mayday.
Yeah.
He's going off. He's going off.
Because I was just like, because like that lady, her name was Denise. Really nice. Like, she was a really nice lady. Like, and she knew, like, she always looked out for the better of people. And that's why I liked her. Versus a supervisor, looked out for his ass. And if something happened that he made the call and you guys somehow fucked it up because he made that call, he's going to pin it on you. Yeah. So that's why I was like, I can't work for someone like that anymore. I don't want to do this.
This last job I had, this guy, I gotten this random guy to be my supervisor, right? And he knew he had never been a supervisor, which is fine, whatever,
right.
you know. But he also never had done my job. He never like had to physically do my job.
Right.
And then half the time he was always trying to like tell me how to do something, and I was always like, I thought he was cool because he would like to discuss those things, right? He would tell me like, oh, I think the decision should be this, and I'd be like, well, you know, based on this and that, like I really think it should not be. And so he would bust out his like rubric, right, and then like say like, okay, well in this case, and then we would discuss it, and sometimes he'd be like, yeah, you know, we do have like these options, we can to kind of talk about it, think about it. But he ended up being like this like spineless dude who, like, even if we did discuss something, he would somehow figure out a way to not end up having to do it.
Right.
Or if he was wrong, he just wouldn't like, not, I wouldn't say like not admit it, because he wouldn't admit it, but he wouldn't like reflect on like, dude, like you need to get more input on this job. You can't just be like the dude telling us that we're wrong.
Right.
You need to hear out too, like, because we got our ears to the fucking to what's going on. You should hear us out. He wasn't like that. And I remember this one day he was like getting close to like Christmas, and no, I think I told that story, but I'll give you a different example because I told this story before. There was a case I had gotten, and the kid was a runaway. She had been in the system, but then was returned to her parents. But then the parent was having this issue with her, and kind of just let her, you know, like, hey, you know what, like she's causing problems. I really just gonna leave her on runaway, I guess. And so CPS picked her up, and then they were having trouble placing her anywhere. She kept running away and dating older men, all kinds of fucking issues.
Yeah.
And so, talking to him, I was telling him like, hey, you know, I went and I found the mom. First of all, like I went and talked to the mom, because the kids I had were all long-term foster kids. They weren't kids who, there was no plans of them going home. They were considered like unadoptable. Usually have like behavioral issues or mental health issues, and so in my cases, I would say, but I was telling my boss like, hey, I talked to the mom, and you know the mom's talking about like she's kind of in a different chapter in her life, and she really wants the kid to come home. Has really decided that she doesn't like she left her with the system, thinking the system was going to do a better job, and now she's seeing that they're not doing a better job, and you know maybe she should just have her come back.
Right.
And so then I talked to him, and I was like, all right, so what's the process? Like, what is it that we need to do to get this going? He's like, well, we're not returning her. And I was like, well, I'm looking over the case, and there's nothing here of why we removed. If anything, she should be reunified with her mother. She's there as a runaway, and now mom's wanting her back in the home. So is there like I'll give it this, like, do we need to do like a mental health check or something to like make sure there's nothing here going on? Or do we, like, what do we do moving forward? And he's like, she's not going home. Like, her grades suck. She's been running away. She has all these other behaviors. I was like, those behaviors are an effect of the system. They're not a reflection of what was going on in that home and why we removed. We removed for these purposes, and she the documents that we've given her through our court say that she has reunified with her children. We just got a hiccup in that she was having a behavior not relevant to why we removed, you know. And now you're giving me all this stuff about school and grades, and I was like, I think that's inappropriate. Like, I really don't find that appropriate that you're gonna like give that solution. And so we kind of left it at that. We said like, hey, we're gonna have a meeting later and we'll discuss it more. He comes back and he's like, hey man, I talked to the court about this situation. So he didn't, and I know he didn't go talk to court to like see if he was wrong. He rather wanted to go boast about why I'm stupid, you know. That's what he went to go do. And so then they were like, nah, he's right. Like, if mom wants her back, then we have to give him back, because that's not relevant. Grades and all this shit are not relevant to why we're here.
Right.
You know, yes, those are problems, and yes, we should try to fix them, but we can do that with the kid in the home. We can assure that they have the social worker from the school getting them grades. They'll be checking on them. There's going to be like a grace period where, you know, people are still going to be checking in on them to make sure everything's fine. And then they'll be checking on grades and behavior and seeing. And if anything, we can even see like a sample of like, did this child's behavior change?
Right.
Right. And so like the situations like that, he That made the job like really fucking hard because you were constantly debating those things.
Right.
And you're like, I don't have fucking time, bro. I'm like hitting 30 something cases, and I gotta get them. I got 20 days to see 30 kids who all have severe problems and issues.
Right.
And then I think there was a point where I could do it. I had plenty of time, but then like I don't know what COVID did. Like COVID made all the other people just want to finish their work and move on with their life, but it made the other higher up people like how much more can we make them do, and how much more can and then like it was just like a cyclical shit where like they would go, we're like a team of 5, right? And someone would quit, and it's not like they're just gonna hire someone and put them like they got a training, and their training is like 6 months to a year. So in that time, the 5 becomes 4, and so if you got 100 cases, now you got 25 cases instead of the 20 you had. And then if another person quits, then now you're taking their cases. And so what would happen is that they would shuffle people around. So they were like, oh, you're in court, now you're over here, and this person's over here. I'm just gonna go around about this. And so then they just like kept moving everybody. And so in that time, you're like, bro, like they replaced the 5th girl, but they replaced it with someone who doesn't know how to do our job. They have the same title, but they don't know how to do our job. We don't know how to do her job. You know, that she did. So it's like I'm not like I'm talking shit, you know. It's just the fact that this person needs to be trained. Like the only thing that they got trained on, because they need like a year of training, the only thing that they got trained on was like their particular job, and then like the rules of how not to get fired. You know, other than that, they don't know how to label a case, how to enter a case, how to go see a kid. So it was like, it was just getting hard, bro. It was getting so hard, and I was like, man. And I would see other people killing it, bro. And I would be like, you know what? Am I getting like burnt out? Like I think I'm burning out. And then I would get cases from these people who I thought were killing it, bro. I just swear I thought they were killing it. And I would get their cases, and I thought they got promoted, or I thought they took off, but nah, fool. Like they were just trying to shuffle people, bro. And instead of firing the person, they're like, fuck, okay, they didn't hack it here, just move them over here. Like do something else where like we could just not lose, because we're bleeding people, bro. And so we just got to keep moving, motherfuckers. And so what would happen is like next thing you know, you're just buried in work. And like before you would like, I would spend like hours with my kids. I would take them to the movies. I'd try to build trips for my kids. I would try to get them trips and go to like camp to get them the fuck out of town. The same thing we talked about, so I could like burst that bubble for them and shit. So I was like trying to put them on. Bro, they would fight me tooth and nail, fucking sending them places. And really, the only people that I saw that could get their kids go to camps and shit like that were like the ones who had the caretakers who were fucking loud, who were like, nah, fuck that, this kid got rights, and you can't prevent it. Whatever you're telling me that's preventing it, let's fucking take care of it, you know?
Right.
But the kids I had were all like they were people who were just interested in the kids, you know. They're like, man, I'll get another kid if he's gonna be, if you're gonna be calling me, Mr. Andrade, about these fucking problems about this kid, just give me another kid.
You know? Fucked up.
And then they're bleeding fucking people to take care of these kids, because these kids are like, now they're stealing and getting in trouble, and there's all kinds of, because they're bored, right? And they're already like fucking kids that get in trouble, and so now they're like, you know what, I don't want this kid. Like, give me a regular fucking kid that's not gonna give me any trouble. And so they're bleeding so hard that they let people talk about the kids like that. Like, fucked up. I saw a lady, like they teach you not to like give your kids stuff in trash bags.
Yeah.
And we would pick up kids in trash bag shit, like they're all their trash and shit in like trash bags, and then they're like, dude, this is like the first thing they teach you not to do.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just doing it, and we're putting up with it because we need people to take care of these fucking kids.
God damn.
And so like once it got to the point where I was like, I'm not hanging out with these kids no more. I'm not getting these positive stories from the kids. The kids are telling me how I spend less time with them than I used to, and I got this boss who's making this job miserable, and I started catching people, like I would get their cases, and I started catching that they weren't seeing the kids. Like they were just lying, like falsely documenting that they were seeing these kids.
Yeah.
I don't know that for 100%, you know what I mean? Only they know. But I would put it this way, like I found out a kid wasn't living with their caretaker for like almost a year.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
And this person swore that they saw the kid, but I was like, and once the first thing that I would figure out, because the rule is like you can't tell them you're coming over.
Uh-huh.
You got to just randomly show up. And so you're always expected to show up 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But I'm like, dude, they need people so bad that they'll give me all the overtime I want.
Right.
So I was working Saturday and Sunday, fucking 12 hours every day, like just grinding out, bro. I was getting like, I think the highest overtime I got paid out was like 79 hours.
No shit.
Just grinding, bro, every fucking day, getting there early, late, turning in paperwork, seeing other people's kids, just grinding out.
Yeah.
And so I show up at this house, right, like at a random hour, and so they're like, he's like, what the fuck? He's like, what are you doing here, man? I was like, he's like, it's like after 5, whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm working late tonight, and I was in the area, so I thought I'd pop in. Hey, can I talk to so and so? Oh, well, she's at work. I was like, oh shoot, yeah, that's right, she does have a job. All right, well, I'll message her. I'll let her know that I tried to come through and I didn't see her. So while I'm here, can I check out the room, make sure everything's safe, make sure the food. So I'm going to the house, and the house isn't like, it's like whatever, it's like not the cleanest house.
Right.
And then I go into the restroom, and the restroom's dirty. And me, like, I think of women, I'm like, no girl would let her restroom be that dirty.
Yeah.
Not a high school girl. Maybe like a younger one, but not a high school girl. She's going to have a clean restroom. And then I go into her room, and I see the closet, and there's like 3 pairs of clothing. And I'm like, oh, is it laundry day? And he's like, yeah. I was like, where's the laundry? I'm that dude.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I was like, well, let's look for it. I'm that
kind
dude.
of being smart assy about it.
I'm that dude. So I was like, all right. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe she took it to wash somewhere else. But anyways, so where's she at? What's going on? So she's at work. I was like, okay. Well, we'll schedule another one in the meantime, and blah, blah. And I just chat with them. I don't leave them with that, like, being a dick to him shit. So I was like, talking to him for a while. I butter him up, and then I leave. And so then I call that girl. I pull over, and I was like, call her. I was like, what's going on? And she was like, what? I was like, look, I'm going to be your social worker. I'm the dude that's going to help you. If whatever the fuck your situation is, I'm going to do is going to try to help you. Anybody else, whatever you feel, how people handle shit, that's how they're going to handle it. But I'm willing right now to try to figure out what's going on, where you're staying. And she's like, I stay with my boyfriend. I was like, okay. Where's your boyfriend live? And boom, gives me the address and shit. And then just one thing after another, which I won't get into because I just don't camera and shit. But I was just like, the reason that they were documenting that they were like seeing this kid in the home was because she wasn't doing her job. She wasn't showing up randomly. What she was doing was she would call the kid or call the caretaker and be like, hey, Thursday at 3, you think you're gonna be home? And I was like, yeah, we can be here. Okay, so then they clean,
they
organize everything, and the kid's sitting right there waiting, and then waiting for you to leave so they can dip out.
God damn.
And so like this person was just so lazy and so overwhelmed that they were just like, I'm just gonna try to blind eye to this. That's the only way I can think of it.
Yeah.
Unless they were just being that fucking shitty and like, I'm just gonna falsely document that I showed up, because you have to write it in there.
Right.
And so what I noticed too is that there's statements that you have to make, right? That you observed that they had food, that you observed that they were safe, that there was no hazards, that they were clothed, that they had clothing for the weather, and there's all kinds of shit that you're like naming, and then there's in between like the conversations that you're having. And then in this lady's contact, she would never put, because then at that point she ever went to court. Well, I never said I showed up. I never said I showed up unannounced.
Yeah.
I said I went and I saw the child.
Right.
I never said that I went unannounced. So I was just like, I was like, oh, slick ass. And that's what got my gear going.
Right.
Because I read those contacts and I'm like, why are they? Because I know people that do that too. Like, let's say like you're a parent, right? And then for whatever your problem is, why you got your children removed. Let's say like for some reason we got into an argument, and instead of just documenting we had a difference of what the fuck the difference was, of whatever the subject was, they'll be like, Alvarez, right? Last name Alvarez.
Yeah.
Alvarez squared his shoulders with me and approached me in a manner in which I felt uncomfortable. I attempted to take 2 steps back, and you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
You don't even know what the fuck. So, but and then it's not like they're gonna go and look for cameras and shit like that, right? And so they'll just document the fuck out of you, and then you don't even know. And then the judge is seeing it, the courts are seeing it. And
you're getting buried under paperwork.
You're getting buried, and you don't even fucking know.
God damn.
And then a lot, like, just shit like that. So it's just like, so the reason when I'm reading it, I'm like, why are they talking? They're saying these things because, again, you don't document your opinions. You're documenting facts.
Right.
And so that when they're documenting those things, it's like, why do you have the need to describe what was going on there, right? nothing ever came of it. Mr. Alvarez never hit you. Mr. Alvarez didn't say any crazy statement, but you're like describing him as someone who's intimidating you. And then later on, there's like this document where like, you know, he got in my face. He raised his voice at me. He's like, yeah, but for like 3 weeks, you've been fucking with this guy. I've been reading the damn documents. Yeah. You've been fucking with him for like 4 weeks. And I don't, the guy fucking lost his shit with you because he's told you 3-4 times already, like, what's going on.
Right.
Like, you've asked him this stuff like every fucking month. Shit like that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, anyways, I went on a rant about working at CPS and shit.
Oh, shit. I got to get going to the well right now, man. I got to
okay.
clock in at work.
Cool.
For sure.